Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. My name is FPL Phillips and today I'm bringing you my Game Week 4 team selection, my transfer thoughts and my planning ahead of this coming game week. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and leave a thumbs up if you do enjoy. All the tools I've used to make all my transfer decisions for this week and all the kind of players that have come into my thinking have been helped and guided by all the tools. So make sure to follow the links down below in the description, I should say, if you want to check out any of those for yourself. In particular, I'm on the OptiStats tool for a large amount of the time that I'm doing my FPL research, so it's definitely worth checking that one out. You can get free access to loads down below in the description. But without any further ado, let's get into things and have a look at my team. So this week, once again, I'm going to be lining up with a 3-5-2 formation, and my rank currently sits at 135k, which I'm still pretty pleased with. It is a drop from last week, where I was at 77k, down to this mark, but not having Bruno Fernandes, not having anyone who scored double digits in game week 3, I'm relatively happy with where I ended up. Despite it being a small red arrow, that's a small amount of points difference, really, at this point in the season. As with this case with every start of the season, a small amount of points can make a large amount of difference to how your rank looks in terms of numbers, and adding, multiple digits on the end sometimes if just a simple thing goes wrong in one of the early game weeks. So don't read into your rank too much at the start of the season. I'm definitely not, and I'm not letting it affect my decision making. I'm just going to play the game as I always would later on in the season, even make the same kind of decisions. Try to not take too many risks early on as well. And sticking with that vein, I've got one free transfer to use this week. I'm probably not going to go beyond that, but there is a slim chance, so we'll get into that in just a moment. But in goal for me this week is once again going to be Sam Johnston, who I'm holding on to for now. There is a little bit of an issue with regards to him, is that Dean Henderson has signed on at Crystal Palace, which could be the start of maybe the end of Johnston's time as the number one. It's going to be interesting to see. I'm not sure Henderson would have joined if he hasn't been given some kind of assurance over some game time, because it doesn't make too much sense logically to go from being the number 2 at Manchester United to just going and sitting on the bench and being the number 2 at Crystal Palace. So I do worry a little bit for Johnston. For now, I'm okay with him. Starting him at home in game week to Wolves in game week 4 is definitely a nice fixture, where I don't think Henderson would have been integrated well enough yet to hopefully start that one at least. And then in game week 5, if worse comes to worse and Henderson's in by that point and does start that game, I do have Turner on the bench, who I may start anyway, because he has a rather nice fixture in game week 5 against Burnley at home. So I'm covered for the next 2 game weeks, at least in the goalkeeper department. After that, I really like the look of Flecken and would ideally like to move to him. I'm eyeing up Maddison as well, if I've got that little bit of money in the bank, to go to him as a nailed-on Man City asset in that back line, where there isn't really an outfield defender that I can confidently say the same thing. I know people like Diaz, Vardiol, Walker, who's played every game so far, looks good, but Ederson's still my personal favourite to go for. So if I was going for a keeper on a wildcard, say, this week, it would definitely be between Flecken and Ederson to go for. But I'm very happy to stick with Johnston for now. In my defensive backline, we've got Chilwell, we've got Henry, and we've got Estepinian, who's probably going to be one of the main talking points surrounding a lot of transfers this week in FPL. Chilwell, of course, going nowhere. Henry going nowhere, who I'm happy to stick with as well. He's got Bournemouth at home, and I would like to see some games where Brentford return to their 5-back system, but I know that's going to be in the majority of the tougher fixtures. So it's going to be a bit of a double-edged sword, where if I have Henry, I'm not going to want to play him in these tough fixtures, but it's arguably going to be the ones where he gets the most attacking threat. So it's a difficult one. That Spurs game was a great example of one where you could choose to play him in game week 1, and he did rather well and picked up that assist. Could have had 2. I'm not seeing as much attacking threat as there are from some of the other defenders around the same price point who I am eyeing up. But I think the main point, as mentioned, is that Estepinian, with some tough fixtures coming up now, and Brighton failing to keep a clean sheet over the first 3 game weeks, is it time to move him on? Or is it time to move a certain other defender who's down on my bench on, and then bench Estepinian for some of the tougher games that he's got? So I've got Gabriel, who you can see there sat on the bench, who is, as I'm recording this on Monday evening, approaching a price drop. By the time you're watching this, he'll have presumably dropped in price. That's based on the Fantasy Football Fix price change predictions. So make sure to go ahead and check them out. You can also do so on the website, link down below in the description, but it's what I use every night to make sure my players are staying at the prices they're staying at, or if they're moving, making a decision on whether to go early or not. But for now, I'm going to eat that Gabriel price drop down to 4.8 million, because I'm not too worried about money in the bank at the moment, having 3.8 million from that Salah downgrade to Foden last week. Where I am worried about is that Gabriel is not getting any game time at all, and therefore I'm looking to shift him onto another defensive asset. And I do kind of have two in mind at the moment as to who I would like to go for, and that is Udogie, and that is Cash. And some people may immediately point out, why not go for Gusto? I think that I want to leave that slot open in midfield, and it's pretty much a no-brainer that Chilwell and Jackson and Sterling is going to look like the most optimal Chelsea triple-up. I'm not going to go Gusto immediately just because of that. And also, I don't think his attacking threat is as good as it was made out in the last game week. He did overperform his expected assists. I don't think he's going to grab an assist or two every single week. So for now, it's between these two for me as to who I go ahead and bring in. And the main selling point, particularly towards going for Udogie, is that he has a kind of fixture this game week, so he's actually one that I'd be very willing to bench Estupiñán for. Matty Cash, on the other hand, faces Liverpool away, and although he's in this very, very attacking role at the moment where he was kind of playing, almost as a right winger in that new system that Emery seemed to deploy where he's more the right wing back, getting forward, he does look very good, and we've seen that over the first couple of game weeks. That XG total of 0.60 is very, very impressive per 90 for a defender. The likes of numbers we rarely see. Udogie has been getting forward himself as well. Do not write off his attacking threat at all. It may look a little bit poor in comparison to Cash's XGI, but Udogie is definitely one of, if not the most, up there with the likes of Chilwell. Not quite to the same extreme, but he's definitely getting forward a lot for his side, more than Porro has been on the opposite side of the Spurs back line. So I really like him as well. And as mentioned, he does have stronger fixtures over the next 2 games, which is immediately drawing me to go for him. He's also created more big chances than Matty Cash, and over the first 3 game weeks, or 4 game weeks I should say, he does actually have a lower predicted points total than Cash, but I am still willing to go for Udogie anyway, and I think right now he is my favourite. The other alternative is that down the line, I bring in Udogie this week, and then I bench Estupiñán, who eventually I might want to ship out anyway, whether that's for a Newcastle defender around the game week 6 point, or whether maybe I could go for Matty Cash then, maybe around the game week 8 or game week 9 mark even, where Aston Villa's fixtures do pick up a lot. By that point, it'll be interesting to see with Alex Moreno returning to fitness, who ends up being the stronger fullback or wingback option to go for from Aston Villa. But Cash is definitely one that I'm keeping on the radar and would like to have in my team some point soon. In the midfield, then, we'll move on to the 5-man that we've got at the moment, and Mitoma is the one stood out in the middle right there, who is probably the one who I'm looking to shift on, and none of the others are going to be leaving my team anytime soon. Very happy with Mbeumo, very happy with Saka, on penalties, of course, to hold him in my team despite the poor data. Rashford, again, one that, or maybe if I had 2 free transfers and nothing else to do, I would choose to shift him on. I do even prefer Bruno slightly at the moment as well. I'm hoping that Højlund will come into the team. It's rumoured that he could even make an appearance as soon as this Arsenal game, which will move Rashford back out to the left where we saw him perform rather well when he was out on that left-hand flank. Creating the Eriksen goal, for example, is just a prime fitting example of what Rashford can do from that position and why he does seem to be a little bit of a better FPL asset from that side. Foden as well looks to have recovered from his illness, like whatever it was that kept him on the bench in game week 3, but very happy to hold him through game week 4. If I had, unlimited transfers, maybe I would have Maddison or someone like that instead. But I have Mitoma, who I can switch out for one of 2 midfielders that I'm very much weighing up as to who I'm going to bring into my midfield. And then I have to decide, of course, once I decide between these 2, am I going to prioritise that transfer over doing the defensive move of Gabriel to Udogie that I've decided on. And those 2 midfielders, you could probably guess, are Sterling and Maddison this week, who a lot of people are going to be weighing up, and I think is going to be a very tight call for a lot of FPL managers. And I don't really have a definitive conclusion either that I can draw from the data and from what I've seen so far. In terms of XG, they're evenly matched per 90, but Maddison does have a higher assist threat as seen through the XA statistics. He also has more big chances himself for him over the first 3. That chance he got for the goal in game week 3 was a very nice one and a good example there. One thing that I would note with the big chances is that Richarlison hasn't been getting too many of his own, and maybe if Spurs do go ahead and sign another forward or something, that could point Maddison more towards becoming a more creative force than he has been. But still, either way with Maddison, I think the bulk of the appeal, I suppose, does come from him creating chances, whether that be from open play or whether that be from the set pieces, which he does, of course, have over Raheem Sterling as well as another positive for him. In terms of expected FPL points per 90 over the first 3, he's also ahead of Sterling in that domain. And then the predicted points also go in favour of James Maddison. And I may say, what's the selling points for Sterling then? He's not really ahead in any of these metrics. Why would you go for him? I like the fixture better in Game Week 4. I like the fixtures better over the kind of next 4 as well, I would say. You know, Spurs do have Arsenal and Liverpool in those next 4 fixtures, despite facing Burnley and Sheffield United in the next 2. So it's very difficult. Chelsea have marginally better fixtures, I think, and despite the fact the points might be a little bit more spread around the Chelsea attack, more than so than they might do around the Spurs attack, I think I am edging a little bit towards Sterling, because I have another week where I could get Maddison in eventually. Maybe that's for the Marcus Rashford move to Maddison in a game week's time or something. It could happen then. And so when I'm looking at the very, very short term, looking at Game Week 4, a home fixture against Nottingham Forest, who are pretty poor on the road defensively compared to when they're at home, I really like that fixture. And I think Sterling, when he kind of gets in these purple patches that he does have, you've got to jump on early because you never know how long they're going to last. So I think it's a little bit more of an exciting pick. I think long-term, Maddison's going to be the better option, and he will be the more consistent one to have in your side. But right now, really liking the look of Raheem Sterling. And then finally, up front, where it's a little bit boring, we've got Erling Haaland and we've got Nick Jackson, who I brought in last week for João Pedro. Ended up being the correct call to do that, despite the fact that I moved Salah out, who got an assist for Phil Foden. I mean, that was a 1 points loss in my midfield, whereas I gained quite a lot up front. So it did end up being a worthwhile use of my 2 free transfers, I think. It's just left me in a position where I've only got 1 this week, but I suppose I have less problems to solve, fewer problems to solve, I should say, with only Estepinian and Matoma, the real ones I'm a little bit unhappy with right now in my side. And when I say Estepinian, I mean that I kind of want to bench him, and therefore I would like to remove Gabriel, because there's no way he's staying in my team another week. I really don't want him in my team another week, and maybe that's biasing me. Is that even a word? Biasing. He's given me bias towards removing Gabriel and going for Udogie over maybe doing the midfield move for Matoma to Sterling or Maddison, whoever it ends up being. But let's have a look at the predicted points totals for this game week then. And game week 4 sees Erling Haaland as the obvious standout captain on 7.6 predicted points. Salah's in second after I just said I've transferred him out on 6.0. And then Mbeumo with that lovely home fixture against Bournemouth on 5.7. Another Spurs asset comes into the mix here with Heung-min Son on 5.6. Jarrod Bowen up against Luton on 5.3. Then we've got Saka and Visser, both equal on 5.2, again with that nice home fixture for Bournemouth. Sterling on 5.0, which is encouraging to see, backing up my prediction for who's going to do better out of the 2 in Game Week 4, I suppose, that I back Sterling over Maddison, maybe in Game Week 4 in isolation. And he's even with his Chelsea teammate Chilwell and also Phil Foden, who you also saw in my side, of course. So yeah, that's going to wrap up today's video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Make sure to leave a comment down below with any feedback you do have or any questions you've got for me regarding maybe your own FPL teams or my transfer plans in the future. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon, hopefully, for those of you who will be tuning into Eddie versus the algorithm in just a number of hours' time. So we're going to see if I beat the computer there. Make sure to tune into the series. If you haven't done so already, you can go ahead and catch up on the playlist that is on the channel. But I hope to see you over there. But if I don't, then have a good game week. Have a good rest of your week, and I wish you all the best. Goodbye.